and I end up getting that gun pinned down, and I'm holding it down to the side with the pointing out the passenger side door. And at that point in time, I'm like, okay, this hurts. Officer shows up, opens the door, that back door, and I yell, gun.
Grantland's Ministries welcomes Nick Powell.
Morning, everybody. I'm Nick Powell. Grew up around here. Went to high school, graduated in 06. Then went to college down at Grand Valley. Then I decided that, didn't like living around here and moved down to where it was warmer. No, I grew up here and everything, and grew up attending North Casanova Baptist Church down the road. And, after college, I decided that, I wanted to get in law enforcement college. Graduated Grand Valley State University with criminal justice, tried to apply to multiple agencies. Had an issue with, I didn't have the law enforcement training and wasn't certified, so I was looking around trying to figure out places that would hire and pay during training, because paying for training was not necessarily a thing I could do. So I applied all around, and then eventually one day I found an agency in Winston-Salem, in North Carolina, Winston-Salem Police Department, and applied. And they're like, oh, we'll pay during training. I'm like, sweet, we'll do that. Didn't hear anything for a while. Get a phone call from somebody, and he has a very thick southern accent where I half didn't understand where he was from. And he's like, oh, I'm so-and-so from the police department. We got your application. However, your driver's license number was cut off. We just needed that to start running some checks and get you paperwork. I'm like, okay. Give it to him. I'm like, where exactly did he say it's from? So I ran the number, and I'm like, oh, Winston-Salem. So go through and fill out paperwork, and then so start doing the process. And one of the things, so I was, getting ready to go to take some tests down there. And one of the things that kind of points to God pointing me in this direction was North Cas looking for a pastor at the time. And looking for a senior pastor. And the now pastor shows up, kind of does the preaching, kind of show what kind of teaching he does. And, that night he's going on about how, I'm from Winston-Salem and everything. And I'm like, well, that's where I applied. So my dad being who he is, everybody's his friend. So we end up talking to him, and he actually gets me in touch with a detective down there, and who, for the police department, goes to his church. And the detective and his wife allow me to stay at their place, so I don't have to get a hotel. So I come down for testing. I stay with them. That Sunday morning, I go to church with them. I meet a couple people that were around my age, and we kind of became friends. And so I leave, and then I have to come back down for more tests. But while I had left, I had then found out that somebody who used to work with the youth in our church had moved down to Winston-Salem and was currently in college down there. And so they're like, oh, I mentioned I had to go back down there for additional testing and signing paperwork, and like, you can stay with us. Okay, this is amazing, 2 people. So go down there again for the tests, the final tests, stay with them, and end up moving, get, my application accepted, and I start rookie school January of 2011. Go through, graduate, keep going to church with the detective, make good friends. And a funny thing is that my wife and I so my wife, her and her family, so I moved down January of 2011. Her family moves up from Florida to North Carolina in the same area in January of 2011. Now, we don't meet until 2013, but just seeing how things are slowly working towards each other as, part of God's plan. And while I was at the church down there, I got involved with the kids ministry and helping there. And so went through rookie school. They kind of seemed, I was quiet. I mean, if you would have asked me to do this 15 years ago, I'd have been like, nope. And I would have just turned around and walked away. But going through rookie school, the joke, people don't know my voice. I mean, at one point, one of our instructors just was like, read the next line. So he's going through the entire class and everybody's got to read a line or so. And they get to me and the people are like, I didn't know who was talking, so I had to get my head up and try and see who was talking. I didn't recognize your voice. But, that was just who I was at the time. And go through rookie school, don't quit through anything. I mean, probably out of sheer stubbornness and kind of runs in the family, but that's just how that is. And graduated rookie school in 2011 of July 2011, and went through field training. And my field training officer actually tells me now, he's like, I tried to get you to quit. I didn't know if you were going to make it. I figure I'll try and get him to quit in round 1. And if he quits, no problem. He doesn't need to be here. Well, sorry to say I'm still here, buddy. And he jokes that he's like, you're still here. I always say that, after you started going through, there were a lot of people who were like, I don't know if you're going to make it. You're quiet. You don't know, and just things that they would say. But a lot of them, some people had known me in rookie school to not quit. And so I was released from field training in November of 2011, and I got released on what people would consider the bad side of town. It's where the shootings would happen, stabbings, anything, you name it, I dealt with it. Many different stories of things from the first time I was there to third time I was there. So through this, I met my wife in 2013, and we ended up getting married in 2014. And one of the things that she said, we met through mutual friends. And she says that one of the things that drew her, that she liked about me, was that I had faith that no matter what happened, like I would face the horrible things, but I would not. She's like, somehow you had the confidence that no matter what happened to you, you'd go to heaven. It wasn't like, oh, I think I'm gonna go. It's like, you go out there, you handle it, something bad could happen, but you do it every day. And it was just something that was drawn to her. And the verse that I had that was a big thing for me, and I guess to deal with everything, is Matthew 10:28-31. And I'm just going to read it from my Bible so I don't screw anything up. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both the soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground from the will of your Father. And even the very hairs on your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. A lot of people like to take, verses out of context and everything. So I like to, whenever, in church, a pastor picks out a verse to say, I look and I read around what's going on. And what's happening here is this is when Jesus is like, all right, I'm going to send you all out. He sends the 12 out. And like, well, what should I do? What do we, people are against us, and how should we handle this? And so that's when he tells them, don't be afraid of the ones who can destroy the body, but be afraid of the one who destroys both the body and soul in hell. And so being able to go out there and deal with everything, considering that, what could happen is a possibility, is just something that we had to face. But so we got married, and my first birthday after we got married, she got me a lighter, a Zippo lighter, because we kind of like, you know, she's really big into history, especially World War II, and she saw a lot of Zippo lighters that her grandfather had from Iwo Jima and people around. So she got me a Zippo that has chaos and order, and on the back, Matthew 10:28-31. And so that was her, you know, gift to me one year. And then, so we got married 11/15/2014. And then we fast forward a year and 1 month later, I decide to, the light way to put it, I get into a car with a stranger. Now, shouldn't do that. But, so, January 4th, 2016, I'm working midnight shift on the east side of Winston-Salem. A officer stops a car for backup, requests backup. He's going to search it based on North Carolina, the odor of marijuana. We're going to search the vehicle. So, stops the car, I pull up. He's like, we're going to get everybody out one at a time. We're going to search them, and we're going to search the car. So, where we're stopped, he stops the car essentially on a bridge at 1:57 is when I show up. And he's like, all right, we're gonna get him out. So I get there, I'm walking out, I'm on the passenger side, and the front passenger goes to open the door. He's kind of looking around. I'm like, hey buddy, just hang out in here. We'll get you out in a second. Goes through, searches the first guy, nothing. Go get the second guy out, the front passenger that was kind of looking squirrely. I'm like, all right. So I open up the door and I kind of open it towards me, because my thought was, if he wants to run, he can either jump off the bridge into the great unknown abyss out here, because you can't see down, which was about 40 feet down into Rocky Creek edge. And then, or he's going to run towards the other officer, who also has another backup. So I'm like, he can either run to two people, jump off a bridge, or he's going to have to try and close the door, which isn't going to go well for him. So he ends up going back, gets searched, nothing on him. We get the back passenger out, he's getting searched, and while he's getting searched, I'm keeping an eye on the front passenger, and I tell the third officer there, I said, hey, get his information. I don't know what's going on. You can just get his information. I have a hinky feeling. So he's talking to him and gets his information. Guy actually provides his true information. Name, birthday, doesn't lie about anything. But he goes and, I'm watching him, and I watch his feet, and he kind of is originally leaning up against the guardrail and just is kind of looking around like he's about to do something stupid. And then he moves his foot and he pushes off. Well, then he runs between the patrol car, runs up next to the suspect vehicle, and jumps in the driver's seat. He ain't gonna get away, so I run after him. Essentially, I get in the car on top of him, and the guy gets the car in park and starts heading down the highway. Doors open. I'm trying to stop the car. I'm trying to put the car in at least neutral, probably emergency brake. We're trying to fight over the car. He's going down the road. He tries to steer it into the median, into the concrete median, to either slam the door closed on me or whatever. I end up steering it back. We fight for the car for probably about, I think it's just under a quarter of a mile. And we stop right before this exit for a street. And when that happened, I didn't know. Apparently I got on the radio and called for backup. Now, I never remembered that until I watched my video later. But when I got on the radio, gave my call number, which at the time was 2626. I'm like, 2626. And they're like, say again? And I go to get back on, and I hear a click and a boom. and I feel the first round hit me right here in the vest. And I'm like, I've been shot. This guy has shot me. Well, I'm going to shoot him. So I take my hand, go to grab my gun, and my hand will open. I can't do anything. And it's just brushing up against the gun. I'm like, okay, well, my next step is I'm gonna get a hold of his gun so I don't get shot more. And I take my other hand and I end up wrestling a hold of it, and I end up getting that gun pinned down, and I'm holding it down to the side with the pointing out the passenger side door. And at that point in time, I'm like, okay, this hurts. Officer shows up, opens the door, that back door, and I yell, gun. He's got a gun. So he moves out, and when he shines his light in from the driver's side, that's when I can see my long sleeve arm, because I'm kind of hanging over him. But my right sleeve is blown open and blood is pouring out of my arm. And I'm like, okay, that explains why my hand didn't work. Who knew, bullet through the arm would take out your ability to do anything. But I'm laying on the guy, and I remember when that door opened up, I was able to wrench the gun from his hand and throw it out. And one of the things I distinctly remember is, I'm like, another officer comes up, I'm like, the gun's outside. It's a Ruger LCP. I don't know if it's a 9 or a 380, but it's the LCP style Ruger. And sure enough, that's what it was. Get out of the car. Another officer shows up. They get him in the cut. They start controlling him. I get out. I sit down, and I'm like, "Oh, this hurts. That sucks." And we end up going through. My corporal shows up. She's like, "Get him." Goes to the other officer. Get him in your car. Take him to the hospital. So he gets in the car. I get in the car. And we go. Now, the exit that we were at, if you get off and then get back on the highway, you're just heading towards out of town. But to get back to go the direction you need to, you have to come around, loop around a couple streets, and then get back to head towards the hospital. Well, this officer gets in the car, gets back on the highway, and starts heading away from the hospital. I'm in the back seat. I'm like, "You're going the wrong way. I need you. You need to turn around." And he's like, "I'm just going to go to the next exit. We're going to loop around on Reedsville Road, and we're going to get back on. We're going to go." I'm like, "Okay, but if you're driving, I can't do anything." So we loop around, we get back, and we're driving down the road. He's flying down the highway, thankfully. But our level 1 trauma center is on an exit that has a nice curve. He's taking that curve, and I'm sitting here in the back seat going, "Oh, please don't crash. Please don't crash." This would be the end. This would just be icing on the cake to crash after being shot. And we get to the hospital. They open the door. I walk in. I sit in the bed, and they start taking everything off. But they start going through. They end up calling my wife. She shows up later. But the funny thing is I knew this one. I knew about my right arm, and I knew my vest. Not until after surgery, when I woke up, did I realize I had also been shot in the upper arm here that went through and through. I got hit on the edge of the vest that came in here, came out where my shoulder blade is. However, the only true injury is the one to my arm, where it shattered my radius. So that morning they put in a plate and some screws. So I'm over here, I wake up, my wife took a picture of me, and I got powder burns on my face, which I've learned through stuff that Powder burns show up between 12 to 18 inches when something is pointed directly at that thing. So powder burns showing right at my face could have been a whole lot worse. But here I am, you know, I say the worst thing that happened was the injury to the radius. And so I went through physical therapy, and one of the big things that they were going through, they're trying things, and it didn't seem like I was going to get full range of motion back, because nothing, they were trying stuff, and like my middle finger would never go up. I could have it down low, and I'd raise it, and the middle finger just stayed low. And like they're trying different things, but we don't know what's wrong. And I'm like, great, that just sounds perfect. But continue physical therapy, and we're going to church, going to this newer church we started going to before I got shot. And we're in the upper balcony. I'm at the front of the balcony. We're singing, and I'm tapping my hands, and I realize, wait, my finger works. I go to my wife, hey, look, it's working. And she's like, so it's good. I end up getting most range of motion back. I have about 11 degrees where I can't fully move my wrist to the left. And but I mean, I can adjust by throwing the elbow out into whatever I need to. My wife and I, we talk about this regularly, and we talked about it a lot afterwards. And, you know, we try and figure out, I had somebody come up to me. He worked on my squad when I got shot. He worked with me before. And he's like, I ask myself, why did God allow that to happen? And I'm like, you know, at the time, I'm like, I don't know why. But we have seen God's hand through everything afterwards. I thankfully never had like PTSD or the nightmares, thankfully. The worst thing that I would say, the closest thing that would be, was one day I'm standing there in our apartment, my wife's in the kitchen, and I'm watching a video of an officer talking to a suspect, and him and his partner go to arrest the suspect, and the suspect pulls out a gun. The officer lunges up, kind of bear hugs him, and the suspect's shooting over the officer's shoulder. And I can hear the screams of the officer. And while I was watching that video, I'm like, my heart rate's starting to go up, my breathing's getting higher, and I'm like, wait. Breath, and I told myself, I'm not there. I don't need to worry about it because I'm not there. And, you know, calmed down, didn't have anything issues. But I told myself, well, I ain't gonna watch any of those videos for a while because I don't need that to happen. And one of the things that, when in my department, we've had a couple officers get shot. One of them got shot. I mean, his was worse, but he ended up being in our detective division for a while. Stayed there, and then actually about a year before I got shot, one of my squad mates, her husband got shot, and so we were able to talk to them, but he was not on the street. And I go, and 9 months after my shooting, they're like, all right, here you are, you're healed. Do you have any, you're clear to go back to the street. Where do you want to go? And I'm like, okay. Thinking that maybe I could stay off the street for a while. Nope. they go and they're like, all right. And I'm like, well, let me go to day shift. My wife said that I never expected you to go to day shift. I always thought you'd be a night shifter for life. But I'm like, let me go to day shift. I can hopefully ease my way in. I can see everything versus midnight shift where you got to have the flashlight to see whatever's right there. So I go to midnight shift. Go to day shift. And the first car I stop, elevated heart rate. I'm like, stopping a car, expired registration, simple thing, hopefully fine. You never know, anything can go wrong. So I get out, walk around the passenger side, look inside. Sweet old lady in the driver's seat. Okay, we'll be a little bit better now. Get her information, and she just hadn't put a new sticker on it. Ran everything, gave it all back, said, all right, have a good day. One of my biggest concerns when I went back to the street was, am I going to be a liability? Am I going to freeze up when it matters? Am I going to just be a hindrance to whoever I'm with? But as things went, I didn't. Day shift worked out well, and a couple of years later, I get promoted. My sergeant, my captain over my area is like, congratulations, by the way, you're gonna go to midnight shift. And you're gonna go to east side again. Same side I got released on, same side I got shot. And I'm like, okay, here we go. We can face it. We'll deal with it. And I also was concerned that, okay, now I'm back to where I was when I got shot. What's gonna happen? And another way to see God in this is I get put with a squad that was very go get 'em. We had a shooting at a grocery store parking lot. Suspect vehicle description was listed. That officer, that's a go-getter, sees it, speeding through stop signs, goes to stop it, gets out, passenger takes off running down the street. And so he takes chase. I pull up shortly after, but I'm like, I don't know who's in that car. I don't know what's in that car. There could be somebody waiting for me. So I draw my gun. I start giving orders. I say, driver, stick your hands out of the car. Whoop! Here come the hands out the driver's door. So I wait till other officers get there. We call them out, get them back to the car, and cuff them. Give commands in case there's anybody else in the car that's just not there. He says that there's nobody else in there, but we can't necessarily trust people. Nobody answers. We end up approaching the vehicle. Nobody in there, but the passenger door, which was open when the guy fled, there's a Glock with a full auto switch with a drum mag sitting in the passenger seat. And I'm like, well, glad I didn't run up there and just dive straight into it. We continued to see different ways that God worked through everybody. When my wife and I got married, she'd say she was a Christian, but she said she didn't really have a good relationship with God. With just how her family was, they didn't really attend church all that often, but she knew the basics, we'll say. And she would, she says that the night when I was in the hospital, she couldn't sleep. That first night, she's like, I'm sitting there, my mind's racing. I can't. She's like, I just couldn't sleep. I kept thinking of bad things, and she's like, so my thought was, I'm gonna go to the Bible app. She's like, I got the Bible app on my phone. I'm gonna find something, and maybe God can speak to me. And she's like, I'm going through, and the last thing she had highlighted was Matthew 10:28-31, which she put on my lighter. And she's like, I read it, and peace fell over me, and she's like, I slept. She's like, there's no other way that God, other than God saying, it'll be okay. And then she's like, I was able to sleep. And so that kind of has been the, we've turned it into our family verse. It's on the lighter. It's, there, I got it tattooed on my arm underneath my surgical scar so that I could, it's there. And it's not a tiny thing, but it has allowed me to witness to people, because people have asked, what's 10:28:31? So, well, it stands for Matthew 10:28:31 in the Bible. And I quote it to them. And like, really, why that verse? And so then I go in and I explain the story, being shot, here I am, come back to the streets, handle everything. And it just, you may not see anything there, but it's planting a seed. And I mean, it's come from my various hobbies. I've had people ask, what does it mean? What's that for? Just, officers who are new, who don't know the story, they ask, they see it. It just is a tool that I've used to share. And I've also been able to talk to rookie schools, our rookie schools that come through. I go in, it's more of a training perspective when I get involved, but we watch my video, they're explained everything, and then I get a chance at the end where I throw in, my faith, how I got through it, because people are like, how did you get through? I'm like, the only way is God. No PTSD, I'm talking with my wife, seeing her change, and it's just amazing to see these wonderful things come from such a horrific incident. And every year, January 4th, we celebrate. I'll take the day off of work if I'm working. I'm like, I'm not working on this day. But this past year was the 10-year anniversary of it. And my boys are 7 and 10, or 7 and 4. They don't know the full story, because I'm not necessarily going to tell my 7 and 4-year-old, yeah, Daddy was shot 4 times. My oldest worries already, but I don't need to add that to this yet. But it's just something we celebrate every year, because it could have been horrific. It could be a day where my department wears black bands, and it could be a day where it was horrible. However, I'm here today, able to speak with all you gentlemen, and it's something that we celebrate. And so that's pretty much my story.